This map of Ghana looks like an ordinary map, but when you zoom in, you start seeing something else. These are holes left behind from mining. I call them scars. This region is along the Offin River. It lies within the Ashanti Gold Belt, and there are several of them. For years, the biggest threat of gold mining in Ghana has been its destruction of our lands and our rivers.
Rivers that have been with us for centuries are drying up. Forest areas which we should preserve for the sanctity of our life and our environment being devastated by this phenomenon of Galamsey.
But another effect no one is talking about is its impact on our economy. Mining has quietly tied our economy to forces we don't control. We depend on mining for our revenues. Gold is now our exchange rate, and nearly 60% of our total export is now gold. A negative shift in gold price or global demand would not just hurt the economy, it can put Ghana into crisis not seen in decades. So let me show you how we got here, how Ghana shifted from an agricultural economy to one dependent on gold.
In 6 months, we have exported over $6 billion.
And how government-owned policies is fueling the Galamsey rush. To understand why gold mining dominates Ghana's economy today, we have to go back in time, long before independence. Mining in Ghana began before colonization. During that time, mining was done after heavy rains. Gold was washed from hilltops and deposits usually settled along river banks. Women and boys would pan the sand, separating gold from sediments by hand. It was not commercial in the modern sense, and its environmental impact was limited. The major change came during the colonial era. With colonization came machinery. Large gold concessions were granted to companies. Gold mining was commercialized into a large-scale operation, one that small-scale miners couldn't compete with. Then came independence.
Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever.
Mining was nationalized under state control. The first post-independence law on mining placed all minerals under state ownership. The majority of mining companies owned by private individuals and firms were acquired by the state. The reason was to tie national development directly to resource revenues, and to use these revenues to fund industrialization and build infrastructure. But at the forefront wasn't gold. At the time, it was cocoa. Developmental loans were taken to fund infrastructure, while betting on cocoa revenues to finance the loans.
And finally, Dr. Nkrumah himself, Osajifo the President, in vice-regal motorcar and sunny mood. This was his dam. He'd borrowed the money, approved the plans, all but built it. Problems were for another day. Budget day, in point of fact, in a fortnight's time, when Ghanaians will learn that they're drastically overspent. But not on the dam, on other, less easily justifiable projects. The dam will pay for itself by the sale of power.
It worked for a while, until cocoa prices collapsed and the economy moved into a recession. This caused economic focus to shift more and more to the precious yellow metal. So it is 1983. There has been numerous coups and power changes. Nigeria had also sent back the millions of Ghanaians who had gone there to get in on their oil wealth. This was the Ghana must go era. And then there was the 1983 famine, which lasted for 2 years. The economy was near collapse. There was a need for a massive change, and the country's response was to join the World Bank's Economic Recovery Program. One of the conditions of the Economic Recovery Program was for the country to privatize the majority of its state's businesses, including the mining firms, a move towards a more liberal economy. And this is what brought us to this era. The shift to privatization created a gap. Many Ghanaian businessmen couldn't afford the upfront costs needed to obtain large-scale mining licenses. So the government moved to legalize small-scale mining. The Small Scale Mining Act made it relatively easier to obtain licenses to mine gold, and it was reserved for Ghanaians only, particularly because the large-scale mining sector had little native involvement. On paper, it seemed like a great shift towards inclusion of Ghanaian businessmen who didn't have access to venture capital or massive business loans at the scale of the larger mining corporations. But behind the facade, this is where many of the recent problems in our mining sector began.
4 young men have been confirmed dead, while about 20 others are feared trapped underground. It is unclear what caused the pit to cave in.
The first law regulating the small-scale mining sector came with a lot of promise. It was positioned to curb the rising threat of illegal mining by regularizing artisanal small-scale mining, but it had a major flaw. Let's start with mercury. Mercury is a very dense liquid metal. For many small-scale miners, mining cannot be done without mercury. So let me show you how mercury is used to extract gold. First, miners dig up earth and rocks that contain tiny traces of gold. That earth is crushed into a fine paste. The paste is then washed down a simple wooden staircase lined with carpet. The carpet traps heavier particles that might contain gold. Next, mercury is added. The mercury binds to the gold and forms a solid lamp called an amalgam. That lamp is heated and the mercury evaporates, and what's left behind is the gold. But hold on a second. If it's this simple, why are there numerous warnings about the use of mercury?
Soil samples in some regions of Ghana have mercury levels 134 times higher than is deemed safe.
How does the mercury enter our system? It is supposed to be a banned substance. At least in mining, it is supposed to be banned.
Including the threat posed to life by use of mercury in the recovery of gold.
Mercury is a sulfur-seeking metal. This means that once it gets inside the body, it binds to proteins, disrupts their structure, and damages the nervous systems, kidneys, and developing brains. Because it becomes trapped inside cells, mercury poisoning can last for decades. Now, the first Small-Scale Mining Act made it absolutely legal for small-scale miners to purchase and use mercury for mining. Mining can be done without the use of mercury. Pre-colonial mining for the longest time was done without mercury.
When the first Europeans, the Portuguese, arrived on our shore, the first activity they saw from their shores, from their ships, being undertaken by the indigenous people, was small-scale mining.
Mercury simply made mining cheaper and faster, but at what cost? The problem with our water bodies is not only the change in color that can resolve within months of inactivity. The main issue is the accumulation of heavy metals like mercury and lead in our streams, rivers, and water bodies that can stay for centuries.
And to think that Ghanaians love fresh fish, and most of these fresh fish are caught from these water bodies that have been contaminated. That is a very serious issue we are dealing with.
They accumulate in fishes and are then transferred to humans thousands of miles away from the mining site when eaten. This affects everybody. The focus of the first small-scale mining law enacted in Ghana was not to curb illegal mining. It was to legalize it, widen their scope, and then attract more small-scale miners. And I'll show you why. Small-scale miners were totally exempt from paying mining royalties and income taxes for 3 years from when the act was enacted. What this means is that when mining was privatized and illegal small-scale mines started popping up in our forests and along our rivers, the government, instead of making it harder to set up small-scale mining operations, which in hindsight was the largest pollutant of our water bodies, actually encouraged it. They encouraged small-scale mining to a point where law enforcement couldn't and still cannot keep track of or properly manage. Gold Board isn't there to curb illegal mining. They are there to maximize revenue.
Board was introduced as part of reforms. And if the gold board was not introduced, I mean, those who were taking the profits from the small-scale mining sector were the foreign traders who were taking that money away. What we've done. So if it's from illegal sources, it's from legal sources. At least it's our land that is being destroyed. So let us get the benefit of it instead of foreign traders.
For the economy, this is a step in the right direction. But for our health, our safety, and our survival, this is patronizing. I cannot be happy that you are curbing gold smuggling when I know that the gold you are buying is coming from the same people who makes me feel unsafe, knowing that the food I eat, the water I drink, and the air I inhale might contain toxic lead and mercury. In economics, there is a theory. It is called the paradox of plenty or the resource curse. What it essentially explains is how countries with abundant natural resources end up becoming too dependent on that resource.
In the past 7 years, other than in 2014, the mining sector has provided the largest tax receipts.
Governments fund their projects in anticipation of resource revenues. This creates a dependency rooted in extraction and the hope that these resources will continue to have favorable market values to justify their extraction. In reality, this doesn't happen. Commodity prices crash, resource deposits dwindle, and demand reduces. If a government is too dependent on revenue from a single source, a crash can be devastating to the economy. Let's take Nigeria. Their oil boom was one never seen before in Africa. The Nigerian economy was on course for prosperity. At its peak, it became the largest economy in Africa. When oil prices crashed in late 2014, it took with it almost half of Nigeria's GDP, and it has never recovered to this day. In 2000, Ghana's gold exports accounted for 37% of total exports. Today, that number is 57%. Gold was supposed to accelerate Ghana's economy, drive development in research, technology, and welfare, but that hasn't been the case. Gold mining can still be Ghana's economic accelerator, lifting the country from a low middle-income economy to an advanced one. It has always been clear, gold is our economy, but its management is not sustainable. Until then, we will still be having the same conversations year after year after year.